A lot we're monitoring as the United States capital, Washington, D.C. is currently putting in all the final touches to its preparations ahead of it hosting the inauguration of U.S. President-elect Donald Trump as the 47th president to hold the Oval Office. And officials expect nearly 250,000 ticket guests to descend on the city to witness Trump and his Vice President-elect J.D. Vance take the oath of office on the same day the nation marks the Martin Luther King Jr. federal holiday. And SABC News correspondent Nick Harper joins us live from Washington, D.C. to give us the very latest on the preparations ahead of tomorrow's inauguration. Nick, good to have you with us. Thank you so much for your time. So talk to us about the current excitement on the ground, especially on the MAGA group, as the final preparations for Trump's inauguration take full effect ahead of tomorrow.
Well, Alicia, plenty of Trump supporters already in Washington, D.C. ahead of Monday's inauguration. Many of them here today, this Sunday, to attend what's being billed as a victory rally at one of the sports arenas in downtown Washington, D.C. A rally where Donald Trump will be speaking, undoubtedly speaking directly to his base and talking about that victory that he achieved in November's election and looking to what he could potentially do in the next 4 years. As for Inauguration Day, it's going to look a little different to what it would normally look like. Remember, inauguration addresses and that swearing-in ceremony, it normally takes place on the steps of the Capitol building, but on Friday it was decided, due to a terrible forecast for Monday with bitterly cold temperatures, that they would be moving the proceedings indoors. The thinking is that people here in Washington will be waking up to temperatures of about minus 10 degrees Celsius on Monday morning. It won't get much warmer during the course of the day, and with wind chill factors taking it even lower, there is a real concern that people outdoors, in particular some of those aging politicians, former presidents who would have been outside for several hours, would have been at risk of hypothermia. So instead, Donald Trump will be taking the oath of office and giving his speech inside the Capitol building, inside the rotunda. It's only the third time in US history that it's taken place indoors. The last time was for the Republican President Ronald Reagan's second inauguration in 1985. And then back in 1821, there was a snowstorm that disrupted proceedings, moving the celebrations indoors. The other big change to Monday's inauguration proceedings is the parade that normally takes place along Pennsylvania Avenue from the Capitol building to the White House. Plenty of Americans involved in that. And of course, Donald Trump would have walked that whole area from the Capitol to the White House. That has now also been cancelled. The parade moving to that sports arena. We're told that Donald Trump will be attending. He will be potentially speaking in some capacity. But the hope is by moving all of those events indoors, it will help to protect people in those very, very cold temperatures.
Absolutely, and it must be a logistical nightmare, Nick, pertaining to the 250,000 ticket guests that will be descending on the lawns of the White House. Talk to us about how this will be managed by the security detail.
Yeah, a real scramble now for those people, but also the security detail, because the people who had tickets to be watching on the mall outside, looking at the celebrations and that ceremony taking place on the steps of the Capitol, have now been told that those tickets are no longer valid because there are no outside celebrations. So they're trying to get tickets inside that arena. And that arena event on Monday afternoon, it wasn't part of the official proceedings on Monday. So security are now having to not just move the guests who are trying to get tickets, but also move all of their response towards the arena. There's about 25,000 security officials in DC for all of this. There's also the army on standby as well. There's a no-fly zone over Washington, DC, and about 50 kilometers of security fencing has been installed around some of the key areas. but they are now scrambling essentially to move much of what they had planned towards that arena, including that now in the security perimeter for Monday, something that was not expected, and of course not expected for all those thousands of people who have travelled from right across the country to Washington DC to watch Donald Trump being sworn in, something that they won't be able to see because there'll only be a small select number of people indoors, and therefore they'll simply have to rely, like the rest of the nation, even though they've travelled here, to watch it on TV.
Notable as well, Nick, is of course the very small list of world leaders that have been included as part of that presidential invitation to be part of this inauguration. Can you take us through some of the most popular names that have been invited?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the names that have been invited, it very much speaks to Donald Trump's brand of politics. So right-leaning politicians like the president of Argentina, Javier Milei, he is coming here, as is the Prime Minister of Italy, Meloni, will be heading here to Washington. There had been some suggestion that also the right-leaning politician, the Prime Minister of Hungary, Viktor Orban, would be here. We have been told, though, in the last couple of days that invitation from Donald Trump to Viktor Orban didn't materialise. He instead will be staying in Hungary to watch it. There's certainly no progressive politicians being invited here. Many of the European heads of state will not be travelling here. And I think it's interesting to note as well, normally you wouldn't get heads of government, prime ministers, presidents coming here to Washington DC to watch this. They'd normally send their ambassadors or their officials. He had put out an invitation to the Chinese President Xi Jinping. They've instead decided to send the Vice President, but that in itself is something of note because normally China would send an ambassador. This is the first time that they've sent a high-ranking government official.
And we know South African presidency has confirmed that South African president has not, in fact, been extended that invitation. Nick, thank you so much for that comprehensive update. That is Nick Harper, SABC News correspondent, joining us live from Washington, D.C. in the United States, as, of course, America prepares for the inauguration of its 47th president, Donald Trump, tomorrow.